Despite my best intentions, I'm a victim of my own ego. I'm a victim of that most essential falsehood that tells me that nothing I produce is of much value or worth, and while I never fail to produce, I rarely place much value on my output because it always seems like I'm trying to punch above my weight class, and despite my best intentions, it will never be good enough. Perhaps it's just old-fashioned imposter syndrome, where I'm afraid that I will be found out to be a phony and a fraud. But I was surprised to learn that there is another term for this idea, a telephobia, which is the fear that everything a person does is wrong. Does this sound at all familiar to you in your own experience with ego? A little imposter syndrome mixed with the soul-crushing feeling that everything you do is wrong and never good enough? The ancient wisdom book of Ecclesiastes begins with a beautiful preface that reminds me of how long people have been struggling with this idea of never being good enough and the futility of it all. We read, "Vanity of vanities, says the teacher, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What do people gain from all the toil at which they toil under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever." A bit later it continues, "All things are wearisome, more than one can express. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, or the ear filled with hearing. What has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun." In this passage, we need to understand that the word vanity comes from the Hebrew word hebel, which means breath or vapor, and serves as a metaphor for things that are ephemeral, out of reach, or just plain absurd. The phrase, "the earth remains forever," underscores how little our actions actually mean and how everything we do really never amounts to much of anything. Bleak stuff. But I don't read this as advocating for a nihilistic worldview. Rather, I see it as a profoundly liberating expression of how important it is for each of us to create our own meaning in life. Some 2 millennia before Jean-Paul Sartre famously wrote that existence precedes essence, in describing the absurdity of existence and the anguish of freedom that comes from an infinite number of choices a person can make, placing the onus of meaning squarely onto each of our shoulders. Indeed, all things are wearisome, more than one can express. So often I have approached both life and the book of Ecclesiastes with a heavy heart when I am deep in my most telephobic moments, and thinking that nothing I can do will ever truly matter. After all, what difference does it really make? But in the darkness of these thoughts, I am reminded that this is my ego talking, and not me. Modern neuroscience notes that the average human has a bewildering number of thoughts each day, with estimates ranging from 12,000 to upwards of 70,000 individual thoughts every single day. At the high end, this means that we have 48 thoughts every minute, just under one a second. While the actual number is a subject to intense debate and ongoing research, what researchers tend to agree on is the overwhelming percentage of these thoughts are believed to be negative in nature. We have endless thoughts that are brutally self-critical, pessimistic, and fearful every moment of our day, despite whatever outward appearance of calm and self-assurance we can muster. According to research published in Psychology Today, most of these negative thoughts revolve around notions of inferiority, love, and control. Thoughts of inferiority like, "Other people's work is so much better than mine." Ideas of love and approval to the tune of, "Why am I the only one out of all of my friends who doesn't have a partner?" And concepts of control seeking akin to, "Why don't my colleagues listen to my suggestions?" They write, "It's interesting that the very thing that most of us believe to be the means to happiness, a sense of superiority over others, finding our true love, and gaining control, ultimately undermine it." They conclude that perhaps the key to happiness is to be found in the move away from our pursuits of superiority, love, and control, and towards a turn towards positive mental chatter. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote that everything matters, nothing is important. And being the academic that I am, I spent a good amount of time trying to track down the source of this quote before stopping myself and reading it again. Does the source of this quote matter? Is finding the exact page and context really important? Or is it my ego that is getting in the way of understanding what is being said by trying to be superior in hunting down one more fact? What I take Nietzsche's quote to mean is that out of an infinite number of possible points of importance, it is up to us to decide what truly matters. So what if nothing I produce is truly groundbreaking or meaningful? The process of creating it has meaning far beyond the actual product for me. So what if everything has already been said by people infinitely better than me? If it is my lot to recreate the wheel, at least it will be my wheel. What do I gain from all of my toil under the sun? I get one more opportunity to stare into the unblinking eye of nihilism and ego and tell it that this thing, whatever it may be, is important to me. And so I struggle with my ego. I struggle with the image in the mirror that endlessly tells me I will never be good enough, but I wouldn't have it any other way. In telling me that nothing I do has any value, it forces me to believe in my work in a more honest way than what might be expected if ego were to run the other direction, believing that everything I do is amazing and wonderful. The second chapter of Ecclesiastes states that there is nothing better for mortals than to eat and drink and find enjoyment in their toil. Yes, we will endlessly toil, and few of us will ever achieve immortality to future generations from what we produce. But it is up to each of us to silence the negative chatter in our subconscious minds in our futile pursuit of control, love, and superiority by turning to the work itself and finding what is truly important. We have to face the world with the courage Anais Nin spoke of when writing, "Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage." And perhaps in this, we will see what Lao Tzu saw when he was writing at roughly the same time as the author of Ecclesiastes from thousands of miles away, that what's perfectly whole seems flawed, but you can use it forever. What's perfectly full seems empty, but you can't use it up. True straightness looks crooked. Great skill looks clumsy. Real eloquence seems to stammer. To be comfortable in the cold, keep moving. To be comfortable in the heat, hold still. To be comfortable in the world, stay calm and clear. Let us not fall prey to the forces that seek to keep us in a world where nothing is important, yet everything matters. May we be courageous in our daily struggle with ego telling us to lay down our tools and give up. And let us move when we need to move, be still when we need to be still, and embrace our struggle with that which tells us we are always wrong, so that we can truly be comfortable in this eternal world of vanities and toil, and find enjoyment in the process of creation. Product be damned. And so it is.